how's it going? Once more I've been grinding in the bowels of the 2D and 3D realms of art, cooking images and models so I can snowball all of it into 2025, doing the exact same thing all over again, but with more ideas and more dumb stuff going around in my head coming out into 2D or 3D. I've also gotten Cruelty Squad fever. I made a model out of this person. My reasons for doing this is extremely minute and petty, and I've also been going through my backlog and have been reorganizing it, making it a goal, one of many, to comb through my list as much as possible for next year. And after all, I've got to make room for GTA 6 and Doom the Dark Ages and maybe Baldur's Gate. At any rate, I decided to categorize my list from shortest to longest in terms of the playtime, and it's going to be a pretty daunting venture. However, I've set some rules for myself that I think will help me out. Well, there's only two actually. The first rule is that I don't have to finish the game if I don't like it. Just have an acceptable amount of playtime, and if I decide to keep going, excellent. If not, whatever. Secondly, it's just going to be paid games that I'll be combing through because I don't really have a problem with collecting free games, and I don't feel the same buyer's remorse effect since the game is free. Other than that, I've got my work cut out for me, and there's going to be some highs and lows along the way on this epic journey. Firing all cylinders, I decided to go for Adverse, a movement-based platformer game where you use a bow and arrow to shoot targets and gauge information from the three main movement abilities that you have: sliding, double jumping, and dashing. It has those distinguishable low poly graphics that you often see on Unity 3D projects or otherwise, and there is some decent level variety, and I liked the minimalistic presentation of the HUD being attached to the bow. But beyond that, I was checked out with this game after 20 or so levels, and I felt like that was enough for me. Like I said before, I don't need to finish every game, just play them for a bit and see how I feel. I wasn't really a fan of this one, but people that like minimalistic movement games may find something here. I'll put a link for it in the description at any rate. My mind was racing at this point, trying to find the next game to touch upon. I had also been trying to power through the first marathon game, wanting to do the exact opposite every second, and seeing that my list was still pretty large. I eventually decided to put that one aside for the time being, a game that I may return to one day. Then I thought about Quake 1 and how much I enjoy that game and its mods. I looked once again at my list, and I thought about the grid crabs and Brazil. Then, like a bolt of stock prices going up, I remembered that I bought a game that was like Quake but made in Brazil, and it was called Brazilian Drug Dealer Free. I open a portal to hell in the favela trying to revive Mitaya. I need to close it. Seriously, that's what it's called. I saw it once on the page, and I honestly didn't know what to think of this game. Then again, I said the same thing about Cruelty Squad when I first saw it, with its zany and archaic but colourful world and characters. Well, this game has some of that Cruelty Squad DNA, but only from its aesthetics. This game, when I played it, was every bit like Quake 1, and I was already happy because of this. Having gameplay that I already knew that I liked, but with an entirely different and uncanny atmosphere, showing a place that you could touch with your hand only for it to be twisted in shitty but charming low-res textures and low-poly buildings, and hell-bent men with football jerseys. You see, you're in a country where football is practically a religion, with strong and conditioned feet due to the frequency of practicing on bare feet. So in this context, a football might have been a better fit instead of a knife. Also, when I reached the nightclub, the decibels on the music weren't high enough, which is enough for me to give this game a 1 out of 10 on this merit alone, just to get the rating out of the way. Anyway, if you've lived and breathed Quake 1, then it's basically your duty to check this game out, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail as to what the game is about and try to uncover its Brazilian roots. So, as of late, Brazil has been making waves in the gaming scene, showing that Brazilian developers can cook some interesting projects too. You have a pool of talented and passionate developers behind these scenes that are making the country's name ring out. One of the most well-known received shooters to come out this year, Mullet Mad Jack, was developed by Hammer 95 Studios, a Brazilian studio. Another game that I covered before, 171, is basically a Brazilian take on GTA, and also has the flag wavering over it. While both titles vary in quality when compared to each other, you can tell that the dedication is still there, no matter the scale or the quality of the respective projects. In the case of Brazilian Drug Dealer 3, Well, it's a reflection of janky, weird but charming mods and bootlegging projects that would come out of the 2000s in Brazil. When I thought of this game, I thought of other games that shared the similar spirit of spontaneous and chaotic ideas dancing around the creators' heads. One example that comes to mind is a game called Cruelty, which is like a more crude and messed up marriage of Postal 2 and Doom 2 coming together in one feces-inducing ceremony. I plan on checking this project out too eventually, but seeing the hammer weapon in it made me think of the Extreme Pain Olympics. Anyway, moving on. Modding is still a wild world, but in the 2000s even more so due to the younger times of the internet and how ideas would manifest in a myriad of different ways, whether it was really crude or something wholesome. Again, anything goes with 2000s internet basically. And this was a time where we didn't have the landscape that we see on Twitter, where we see lots of different opinions, or an era where we have a version of God of War with Kratos having the Last of Us syndrome with Baby Gronk as a sidekick character. Well, this game feels like a portal back in time before all of that transpired, from its aesthetics down to the Quake gameplay that I remember like yesterday. And why Quake one of all games? Well, it's rooted back to the same reasons people mod today, and it's usually out of the passion and genuine enjoyment for an existing game. Think of the largest and most popular titles that you have out there with the largest modding scenes. This game is also a reflection of that passion and that dedication that people have to those sort of games, and Quake, like Doom, has a pretty large modding scene in its own respect. And back then it was also alive and well, and people would take the existing assets and morph them into something entirely new, as you can see here with the weapons and the enemies on screen, making entirely new pieces of content and maps for players to enjoy, getting an experience that is unique from the vanilla Quake experience. The weapons and the enemies are all from Quake 1, but have been retextured, modified to an extent to match the Brazilian acid trip that is this game. And so what is this game about exactly in terms of the story anyways? Well, the main character, who is apparently a Brazilian version of Duke Nukem, at least according to what I read, had this desire to resurrect the 70s funk musician Mit Aya, who I guess was doing this to make Brazilian music great again. At any rate, everything goes wrong and all hell breaks loose, and now you need to close the portal, in Quake 1 fashion, booming and shooting your way through demonized football fanatics and other creatures I don't have any words for. If you've already played Quake, then it's the exact same deal here in terms of how you navigate. Find the keys, find the exit, rinse and repeat. So those that are looking for a different kind of boomer shooter experience with more objective variety, they're not going to find it here. Now on the side of art, shitty art can still be charming and can also be purposeful too. And art is generally a subjective thing, but I think with what the developer was going for, I think works pretty well here, because it's made in the spirit of a time capsule, a 2000s bootlegging modding time capsule. And I think this game does a great job of realizing that in its own way. So how can I describe the kind of art that you're seeing here in this sort of game, and how can I describe the feelings that I felt when I was playing this game? Well, put it this way. You know when you think of a million ideas at once and you actually decide to manifest them into a game format, whether they're irrelevant, whether they make sense, or if they, even synergize properly? Well, that's what this game is. Just a chaotic cascade of ideas materialized in the id Tech 2 engine. In fact, all of this started with a conversation between the developer and his girlfriend at 3 a.m. in the morning. And that's all it takes, really. A specular moment in time, relevant or otherwise, that inadvertently creates an idea out of nowhere. And from that point on, it was up to the developer to push that idea further, and this is what we got. And so, why the Quake Engine besides modding capabilities? Well, you look at the game and you can see that the mechanics of Quake, the gameplay and the features were already there for a rapid case of development where the focus could shift towards the remodeling, the texturing, and the modification of certain functions of the existing game being changed. It's not unlike the Jeezy Doom games where the guts of Doom 2 are taken apart and are replaced by a lot of other assets. It's similar to what we're seeing here. It's no different, honestly. The authenticity of the game's feeling is real here because it is within the bounds of a title that already exists, a title from '96, and isn't just another Unity boomer shooter game with retro graphics. Doom, Quake, and Half-Life are chock full of total conversion projects, and if you rewind the clock to the 2000s, you may also find similar janky modding projects that are similar to this as well, because it was also made in the memory of that era and the memory of 2000s Brazilian bootlegging and modding. That particular era has also seen transitions of going from a mod to a full game, and nowadays we see a lot of developers that have come from modding backgrounds. And Brazilian Drug Dealer 3 is an example of those sort of stories. If you love Quake, then, like I said, it is your sworn duty, and it is also your obligation to check this game out. I look forward to seeing further developments, but for now, I consider this one in my list complete, and I'm seeing what else is on the horizon. This game is awesome, it's a mess, it's chaotic, but it's also fun, and it also has the Quake spirit, and that's enough for me to recommend this game. Thanks for watching.